What's going on, you guys? My name is James Licata. We are going to be talking about the JST BG mix compressor today. It's a mix bus compressor, part of the Joey Sturgis Tones bus glue compressor series. Sounds really great on the mix bus. Before I say anything more, let's just dive in and check it out. Now, before we even hear anything, let's just talk about the plugin, take a look at the parameters, and become a little bit more familiar with it. We have an approach knob, which offers 4 different approaches or 4 different types of compression. First, we have careful, and I'm going to kind of sum it in with lively. They're similar. Lively's just a little bit more intense. They're both slower, less apparent compressors, almost like optical compressors that would be ideal for something that isn't too intense and isn't too brooding. Then we have bold. This kind of acts as the middle ground FET compressor. It's a little punchier, a little bit more intense. You're going to get a little bit more life out of this sound. Then we have fearless, which is almost like a VCA compressor, very intense, very in your face, very apparent that there's compression happening. So there's a lot of different sounds, a lot of versatility out of this approach knob alone. When we move on, we have the comp knob. Simple enough. It acts as a threshold. Just how much of the signal do you want compressed? The higher you go up, the more you're going to see this meter be engaged. So if we keep it on low, no compression. Medium, a little bit of compression, so on and so forth. Simple enough. We have a mix knob acting as a way to mix in your dry versus your wet signal. For me, if I'm putting this on the mix bus, 9 times out of 10, I'm going to have it all the way up. Unless I'm doing some really interesting parallel compression, then I'll totally experiment with mixing it in slightly. But great little feature that's definitely needed for a lot of different situations. We have these 2 buttons here, warmth and clip, which to me, it sounded as though they were acting as saturation, and I'm pretty sure that's what they're getting at. Warmth really helps with the low end, clip with the top end. You kind of have a low end boost and a top end boost. It was very apparent on the bass, and then the clip was very apparent on things with intense transients, especially the snare drum and that top end sizzle of the snare drum. So we'll take a look at that. The song we're going to be working with today is by the artist named Blush. The track is called Foreign, and the reason I chose this song is not only because it's a phenomenal song and Blush is a phenomenal songwriter and producer, but there's a lot of elements going on. We have a lot of synths, both ambient and lead sounding, very intense, shouty, punk-esque vocals that are very melodic. Lots of effects, big reverbs, big delays. We have guitars, we have live bass, we have a synth bass, and on top of that, we have a bunch of different drums and percussion going on. So this is a fairly intense instrumentation that will benefit greatly from a mixed compressor kind of rounding out the sound. Let's just take a listen to it as is, without any compression happening. As you can see, this is a very intense part of the song. This is kind of the peak and what the whole first half was building into. We want to keep that intensity, but we want to round things out. So initially listening, the kick and the snare can be a little bit smoother. There were some of the vocals on the sides that were popping out. So let's make that happen. Let's use this compressor to round out our sound, keeping the intensity and keeping the fullness, while just smoothing out the edges. Here we go. So after just hearing the differences in the 4 types of compression, it's very apparent. There's a lot going on. And what stuck out to me as being the most appropriate sounding for this mix is bold. So I'm going to dive into that, mess around a little bit more, touch up my settings, and we'll bypass and do an A and B. I'm loving how that's sounding. That really helped bring out those side vocals, but it's really keeping them in their own zone without pushing them too much. The drums sound a lot clearer. There's just a little bit more punch. It's just helping to round out the sound. All I'm doing, I'm using the bold setting, the third most intense sounding compressor. I got 47 on my comp settings. For the meter, I don't want it reading anything more than 4 dB gain reduction. To me, right there, that sounded great. Anything past that just sounds a little bit too compressed. I still want it to sound natural, just round it out. This sounds great to me. Let's check out the warmth and the clip knobs. I'm just going to go back and forth between them, and we're gonna listen for the differences in the sound. That's great. Going back to what I was saying before, the warmth is doing a great job at accentuating the low end. It's helping some of those bass notes pop out. It doesn't really sound like it's taking anything away from the highs, rather giving the lows a little bit of a warmer boost. Clip, something in a similar vein, but with the high end. To me, I'm really hearing it on that snare attack, the top end, the sizzle from that snare. It's just doing a great job of accentuating that. So I'm gonna opt to keep both of those on while the compressor is running. So there's one more thing I want to try out before we wrap this up. I want to try out a little bit of a different technique with this plugin. And with this, I want to try some kind of parallel mix bus compression. I want to try it on Fearless, do something fairly intense, and see if we can blend in the signal to add different life to the song than we were getting beforehand. So the same part of the song, just gonna listen, feel it out, mess with the buttons, see what happens. Really interesting. Something to keep in mind though while we're doing this, have good gain staging. So every time you're compressing, adding an effect, doing anything, make sure you're turning down the gain at the end of the processing, so when you bypass it, there's no difference between the original signal and then the affected signal. To me there, it sounded better. It was also a little bit louder, so I'm going to turn this down, and we're going to bypass and listen again. I love what it's doing to those vocals. It's adding a really cool presence, a really cool intensity, something I wouldn't normally do. But I like it. It's interesting, it's fun, and I think this plugin offers a lot of versatility in a lot of ways for people that might be intimidated by compression to jump in, mess around, and have a little fun with it. I'm very happy with this plugin. I recommend the JST BG Mix Compressor to anybody out there that wants to change up the sound of their mix bus, get a little bit more versatility, and just have different options for different sounds. This is a great plugin, offers a lot of different avenues to go down, and I highly recommend it to any engineer out there. Thank you.